Dim light seeped through the smudged windowpane, painting a hazy pattern on the worn hardwood floor. Ethan stood rigid, his fingers twitching as if each movement carried a secret premonition. The night was thick with expectation. Tonight was meant to be perfect. Months of planning had led to this anniversary, a celebration built on memories and promises. The table was set meticulously with her favorites. Delicate porcelain, flickering candles casting dancing shadows, and a bottle of vintage wine breathing in a glass decanter. He wore the shirt that always made her smile, the one that whispered of earlier days filled with hope and gentle laughter. Yet, the apartment was unnervingly hushed. The silence felt almost conspiratorial. Clara had excused herself to the powder room. 15 minutes had passed, each tick of the clock deepening the knot of unease in his stomach. "Clara!" he called softly, half expecting her to break the stillness with a teasing remark about his anxious pacing. But only silence answered, a silence that pressed against his skin like a cold shroud. A prickling wrongness surged through him, urging him forward despite the dread. His heart pounded as he reached for the powder room door. With a trembling push, it swung open, to reveal nothing but emptiness. Ethan recoiled, mind racing with half-formed questions. Then a soft vibration in the living room sliced through his thoughts. His phone buzzed insistently. With a sinking feeling, he picked it up. A message from S, a mutual friend from years past, flooded the screen with brutal clarity. "Ethan, bad news. Clara won't be back tonight. She's with Derek. Sorry, had to tell you she's with him." The words hit him like a blow to the gut. Derek. The name resonated with every insecure echo of comparison. There was no mystery about him. A celebrated athlete with charm and effortless magnetism. Clara was with him. Ethan's mind reeled, disbelief warring with a surge of stark reality. Had he missed the subtle signs? The careful hints woven into months of shared life? Now, the shock was overwhelming, transforming the familiar into a battlefield of betrayal. He stared at the phone, its screen a mirror to his unraveling world. There had been no warning, no hint of this dark turn. His vision blurred, every breath felt shallow, as if the air itself had conspired to betray him. Dropping the phone onto the counter, anger surged hot and raw. "She's really with him," he murmured, voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. He immediately dialed Clara's number. The line rang, once, twice, then, only voicemail. The absence of her voice left him stranded in a void, the silence of betrayal echoing around him. Grabbing his jacket, Ethan stepped out into a night that felt no less cold than his inner turmoil. Each step on the deserted street was a desperate quest for truth, for confrontation, even if that truth was a pain too deep to bear. The familiar cityscape blurred into a surreal montage, distant city lights, the whisper of the wind, and his own frantic pulse echoing in his ears. In that moment, he was no longer the man who had carefully built a life with Clara. He was a stranger to his own existence, thrust suddenly into the chaos of a betrayal he could neither understand nor reverse. A hint of a cryptic premonition had grazed his thoughts earlier, a feeling that something deeper lurked behind the surface of their once secure love. Now, as the cold night swallowed him whole, that mysterious whisper of fate grew louder, promising that nothing in his world would ever be the same again. How had they arrived at this unthinkable turning point? Their life, once a seamless tapestry of shared moments, now lay in tatters. There was a time when they were simply Ethan and Clara, a single entity built on laughter, shared secrets, and dreams whispered under starlight. He recalled her eyes gleaming with unfiltered joy when they first met, her laugh that had once filled every quiet corner of his heart, and the endless conversations that made the hours vanish without a trace. The thought of their love fracturing, disintegrating into distant memories, had once seemed impossible. Yet here he was, standing on the precipice of a collapse he never dared to imagine. In the dim aftershock of betrayal, Ethan's mind raced through the years, each moment now tinted with regret. He saw fleeting images, Clara's gentle smile, the casual brush of her hand as it reached for his in moments of quiet intimacy, and the tender glances they exchanged when the world was still. Those were the days when everything had seemed effortless, natural. But somewhere between the countless late nights at work and the mounting pressures of everyday life, the magic had slipped away. In the relentless humdrum of bills, deadlines, and obligations, he had become inattentive, too absorbed in his own routines to notice the subtle signals of loss. Now, as he walked through the night, each step echoed with the weight of his remorse. The revelation that Clara had sought solace in Derek, a man who embodied everything he wasn't, was a bitter pill to swallow. Derek was not merely a rival. He was an embodiment of vibrancy, success, and the elusive spark of life that had gradually faded from his own existence. Clara's admiration for Derek had always been a quiet undercurrent, a distant glow he had dismissed as harmless. Yet, in the harsh light of truth, it became evident that his steady, predictable presence had inadvertently grown into something invisible, a shadow that could no longer compete with the allure of a life that promised excitement and recognition. Ethan's phone vibrated again, a relentless reminder of the shattering reality he was now forced to confront. A text message from Clara appeared, laden with a mix of apology and resignation. "Ethan, so sorry. Didn't mean to hurt you. Tonight had to happen. Needed to feel alive again." The word alive reverberated in his mind like a cruel refrain. Alive. Had his complacency, his failure to nurture their once flourishing bond, rendered her lifeless? The stark simplicity of her words cut deeper than any elaborate explanation. Gripping the phone as if it were a lifeline, he felt the tremor of raw emotion surge through him, a potent mix of anger, sorrow, and self-recrimination. In that silent, unyielding night, every passing moment seemed to confirm what he had long feared. The foundation of their life, built on countless shared experiences and quiet commitments, was crumbling under the weight of neglect. Each memory now bore the mark of inevitability, a warning that had been ignored. As Ethan's thoughts tumbled over one another, he realized that the vibrant connection they once shared had slowly withered, leaving behind a brittle remnant of what used to be. Haunted by flashes of forgotten conversations, lingering touches, and the soft glow of happier times, he could no longer deny that something had irrevocably changed. The comfort of routine, which had once been a safe harbor, had transformed into the very mechanism of his isolation. It was as if every day had conspired to erode the emotional intimacy they had so carefully cultivated. In the endless cycle of work and mundane responsibility, he had missed the quiet pleas for attention, the subtle signs that Clara's heart was quietly breaking. Now, as the weight of his realization pressed upon him, the question that burned with unrelenting intensity was simple yet devastating. Had she found in Derek what she desperately sought but he had failed to provide? The answer loomed ominously in the dark, a mirror reflecting not only Clara's yearning for something more vibrant but also his own deep-seated incapacity to evolve with her. As he continued to walk, lost in thought, the city around him blurred into an indistinct montage of neon lights and dark alleyways, each shadow whispering secrets of love lost and opportunities missed. Ethan's internal monologue was punctuated by a deep sense of isolation, a poignant reminder that, in neglecting the small yet significant moments of connection, he had allowed their bond to disintegrate. The text message echoed in his mind, a final note of a song that once promised endless possibility. The realization struck him hard. Sometimes, the slow erosion of love is the most painful betrayal of all, a gradual letting go that leaves behind an emptiness too vast to fill. Ethan's phone vibrated again, a persistent reminder of the pain he couldn't escape. With hesitant resolve, he answered, and on the other end came the familiar voice of S, gentle yet edged with urgency. "Ethan," S began, "I know you're hurting, but you need to understand something. Clara never intended for things to spiral so far out of control. She's lost, confused, and Derek has a way of making people feel remarkable." The words seemed to hang in the chilly night air, offering a temporary reprieve from the intensity of his emotions. For a brief moment, Ethan wondered if there was an alternative explanation, a subtle miscommunication that could be unraveled. "She chose Derek, not me," he repeated, the realization heavy in his tone. "I can't see how this could ever be undone." "Ethan, please," S pleaded softly. "Don't defend her actions or Derek's allure. I'm just trying to understand what happened to the woman I once knew. What happened to us? Before S could press further, Ethan ended the call, leaving a silence that reverberated with both anger and sorrow. Standing alone on the rain-slicked sidewalk, he felt the night's chill seep deeper into his bones. It wasn't merely the cold, it was the profound realization that his entire world was disintegrating, the future once painted with hope now obscured by betrayal. In the quiet that followed, memories of better times flickered before him. Clara's sparkling eyes, the gentle squeeze of her hand during quiet evenings, and the effortless way their laughter had once intertwined. Each recollection now felt like a cruel reminder of what was lost. The text message, "needed to feel alive again," echoed repeatedly in his mind. What did it truly mean? Had his inability to change left her feeling invisible, condemned to a life without vibrancy? The painful truth struck him with relentless force. For months, he had been entangled in the mundane. A steady job, predictable routines, and an ever-growing distance he had failed to notice. Meanwhile, Clara's longing for excitement and affirmation had slowly drifted toward Derek, a man whose presence ignited a spark that Ethan himself had not been able to kindle. Derek was not merely an intruder. He was the embodiment of the vitality and recognition that Clara craved, the antithesis of the stability Ethan had always offered. As he trudged along the deserted street, the city around him blurred into a collage of neon glows and dark silhouettes. Every step resonated with a sense of irrevocable loss. The betrayal was not a sudden rupture but a gradual, unheeded erosion, a slow disintegration of the bond they once cherished. In that moment, the weight of every missed signal and overlooked gesture pressed upon him with unbearable intensity. Ethan's thoughts spiraled as he considered the deeper implications of what had transpired. It wasn't solely about Clara's newfound desire for excitement. It was about the quiet decay of intimacy over countless days filled with routine and neglect. The shock of betrayal was compounded by the realization that he had, in some small way, contributed to her drifting away. Had his dedication to a monotonous life rendered him incapable of evolving alongside her needs? The more he reflected, the more he recognized that this betrayal was not an isolated incident but the inevitable consequence of a relationship left unattended. In the cacophony of everyday responsibilities, he had missed the subtle, desperate signals of discontent that had finally culminated in tonight's shattering revelation. And now, with each step forward, Ethan felt the painful duality of regret and anger intertwining within him. A bitter acknowledgement that he had been both victim and unwitting accomplice in their unraveling. The relentless drizzle of rain began to wash over him, mingling with the tears he refused to acknowledge. The city's relentless pulse, the distant hum of traffic, and the sporadic flicker of streetlights provided a surreal backdrop to his inner turmoil. In the stillness of that night, Ethan came face to face with a stark, unvarnished truth. He was utterly alone, standing amid the ruins of a love that had withered under the weight of indifference and unmet desires. In the depths of his despair, a thought emerged, a glimmer of clarity amidst the darkness. The slow decay of their connection had been building for far too long, and perhaps, in this moment of agony, there lay a small seed of liberation. Recognizing the futility of holding on to what was lost, Ethan began to contemplate the possibility of forging a new path, even if it meant leaving behind the remnants of a once beautiful life. Yet, the road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, and the night offered no promises of solace. The voice of Clara's text, echoing the plea to feel alive again, continued to haunt him, mingling with the bitter taste of regret. As the rain continued to fall, Ethan's mind teetered between the stark realization of betrayal and the tentative hope that, somehow, he might one day reclaim the spark of life that had been stolen from him. "Ethan!" Clara's voice trembled on the line, thin and uncertain. "I know you're hurt and angry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't plan to break your heart." Her tone, laced with regret, did little to soften the raw edge of his pain. "Didn't plan?" Ethan's voice cracked with bitter disbelief. "Clara, for months I've been drowning in this silence, and now you tell me it was all an accident? You were slipping away piece by piece while I was too caught up in our routines to notice." His words came out in a harsh staccato, each syllable punctuated by the pounding of his heart. A pause. Then softly, Clara continued, I wasn't expecting any of this. I just needed to feel alive again. I never wanted to hurt you." Her words, fragile as glass, floated in the charged silence that followed. "Alive again?" Ethan's voice hardened. "Is that all I ever was to you? A safe, predictable existence that you could abandon for a taste of excitement?" His anger spilled over, mingling with despair. All those promises we made, all those moments we shared, they meant nothing if I wasn't enough. Her breathing trembled, punctuating the silence. "Ethan, please." I was lost. I didn't know how else to feel. Derek. He made me feel important, like I mattered. "I'm sorry. I truly am." Each syllable from her was an echo of regret, but it was too little, too late. "Important," he echoed bitterly. "All I ever did was stand by, believing in us, while you were chasing something. Someone who lit a fire I never even dared to spark." His voice wavered between sorrow and fury. "You left us, Clara. You left me in the ruins of what we built." A long silence ensued, broken only by the sound of her soft crying. I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice nearly lost in the static of their connection. "I wasn't thinking clearly. I never wanted to destroy what we had." But Ethan's heart had already closed the door. "You're set on this, aren't you?" he said, his tone a mix of heartbreak and finality. "I was the one who stayed, the one who fought to keep us together, and now you expect me to simply forget? To wait and hope that somehow, after this betrayal, we can pretend nothing ever happened?" Her voice caught on the words. "I don't want it to end like this, Ethan. I want to fix things. I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me a chance." There was a pleading quality in her tone, but the trust between them lay shattered, beyond repair. "Fix things," he scoffed, a hollow laugh escaping him. "How do you fix the moment you choose another man? How do you rebuild when the very foundation has been torn apart?" His breath hitched, sorrow mingling with the sting of betrayal. "I can't, Clara. I can't go back to a life that was slowly suffocating me. You made your choice. I'm done waiting for a miracle." A tearful silence stretched between them before Clara managed a broken, "I'm so sorry." But even that apology, faint and desperate, could not mend the chasm of hurt that now lay between them. "I can't forgive you, Clara," he said, each word laced with a bitter taste of finality. "I can't see you the same way anymore. You've left me with nothing but the echo of your apologies and the ghost of what we once were." His voice, resolute yet pained, hung in the stillness as he took a deep breath. The line went quiet, save for the soft, intermittent sound of her crying. "I can't let this go," Ethan continued, the resolve in his tone unwavering despite the tremor of heartbreak. "I can't stay in a life built on shattered promises and betrayal. I need to find myself again, without you, without the hurt." Clara's voice, now a distant whisper, begged, "Please, Ethan, don't do this. Don't close your heart forever." But he couldn't hear her pleas over the roaring silence of his own pain. "Goodbye, Clara," he said finally, his voice steady with a resigned finality that echoed in the void between them. "It's over. I can't fix what you've broken, and I won't let this define me any longer." With that, he ended the call, the sound of the disconnect reverberating like a final verdict. The silence that followed was both crushing and liberating, a reminder of the end of one chapter and the painful beginning of another. Standing in the cold, solitary darkness of the night, Ethan felt a strange mix of anguish and release. Every shared memory, every whispered dream now lay scattered like broken glass, too sharp to pick up. His mind raced as he tried to reconcile the past with this harsh new reality. The apartment, once a sanctuary of shared hopes, now stood as a tomb of all that was lost. With a heavy heart and trembling resolve, Ethan knew that he had to walk away. He had to leave behind the ruins of a life that no longer held the promise of love, and begin the slow, uncertain journey towards healing. As the night deepened, the bitter taste of betrayal lingered. Yet, in that final wrenching moment, Ethan understood that sometimes the only way to reclaim one's life is to let go, completely, irrevocably. And so, with a deep, shuddering breath, he stepped away from the shattered remnants of his past, into a future that, though uncertain, promised the possibility of renewal. Her need for excitement had driven her into another's arms, an irreversible choice that now echoed painfully in every corner of Ethan's heart. With each step he took away from the shattered home they once shared, the dark night seemed to swallow him whole. His phone buzzed in his pocket, an incessant reminder of unfinished conversations and lingering regrets. Yet, he ignored its insistent pull, knowing that every message would only dredge up more of the hurt. Ethan wandered through empty streets until a flickering neon sign caught his eye, a bar promising a temporary refuge from the solitude. Inside, the cacophony of clinking glasses, murmured laughter, and boisterous chatter offered a contrast to the silence of his lost life. He settled onto a stool at the bar, the cool surface of the wood grounding him momentarily as he cradled a glass of beer that offered scant comfort. His reflection in the mirror behind the bar looked back at him, a gaunt figure whose tired eyes held the weight of 1,000 unsaid goodbyes. Minutes slipped by in a haze when a woman's quiet presence stirred his attention. She ordered her drink with calm confidence and, as their eyes met, a small, understanding smile played on her lips. Her gaze was kind, neither probing nor pitying, but simply acknowledging the silent turmoil that radiated from him. "Long night?" she asked softly, her tone warm yet unassuming. Ethan managed a hollow chuckle. "You could say that," he replied, his voice heavy with resignation. Then, almost without thinking, he added, "My wife, no ex-wife now. It's over. She's with someone else." His confession was raw, the admission of defeat a bitter pill he had long tried to avoid. The woman nodded slowly, her expression sympathetic. "That sounds incredibly painful," she said, her voice gentle enough to soothe yet firm enough to remind him that healing, however tentative, was possible. As he sipped his beer, Ethan's thoughts drifted between the past and an uncertain future. He recalled the countless evenings they'd spent together, the warmth of shared dreams, the comfort of a simple touch. Now, those memories were laced with betrayal, each one a reminder of what had been lost in the wake of Clara's desperate quest to feel alive again. He realized with aching clarity that he had been so consumed by the predictability of his own existence that he had missed the subtle signs of her growing restlessness. The woman's steady presence provided a quiet contrast to his storm of emotions. "Walking away doesn't mean you're weak," she continued, her voice imbued with a gentle assurance. "Sometimes, it takes more strength to let go of what hurts than to hold on to what's no longer there." Her words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply within him. For so long, he had clung to the remnants of their past, a past built on routine and a love he believed was unbreakable. But now, faced with the stark reality of betrayal, he recognized that his worth was not tied to someone else's need for excitement. In that moment, the realization emerged. Reclaiming his identity meant accepting the pain and forging a new path forward. "I've spent too long trying to fix something that was already broken," he murmured, almost to himself. "I thought being steady and reliable meant I could weather any storm. But sometimes, the storm takes you to a place where you have to rebuild from scratch." The woman's eyes met his with quiet determination. "You can rebuild," she said. "Not by holding on to the past, but by letting it go and choosing to care for yourself. Sometimes, a stranger's words can remind you of who you truly are beneath all the hurt." Ethan's grip on his glass tightened as he absorbed her words. In the noisy din of the bar, amidst laughter and the clatter of glasses, he began to see a flicker of hope. His heart was battered, scarred by the betrayal, yet perhaps, just perhaps, there was a chance to rediscover himself, to let the pain transform into the strength to move forward. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the ache in his chest mingling with a newfound resolve. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice carrying both gratitude and a hint of emerging determination. "I needed to hear that. I needed to remember that I'm more than the sum of my broken promises." The stranger offered a gentle smile, a beacon of kindness in the midst of his despair. "Remember, it's not about forgetting the past, but learning from it. Don't let this chapter define you. Your story isn't over yet. As the night wore on, Ethan felt the weight of his past begin to loosen, replaced by a cautious optimism. The pain wouldn't vanish overnight, and the path ahead was uncertain, but in that noisy, unguarded moment, he took his first step toward healing. Each clink of glass and soft murmur around him was a reminder that life continued, offering new beginnings even in the wake of loss. And so, with one final look at his reflection, a man transformed by sorrow yet slowly embracing the possibility of renewal, Ethan resolved to walk forward. The road would be long and fraught with challenges, but he would reclaim his life, piece by fragile piece, and perhaps someday, the darkness would give way to a light that was entirely his own.